the Para Cave podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Para Cave podcast, the Parramatta Times.
Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. Troy Warner here, and it is the interview-based podcast that comes out each and every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. And today it is with a former player. This time we've had a few fans interviews over the last couple of weeks, but now we're getting back to a former player, and this player, he played for Manly, Warringah Sea Eagles and also the Balmain Tigers, and he played in the 1997 Grand Final for Manly, and that was one of the most memorable Grand Finals as you can remember. Unfortunately, it wasn't too memorable for him as he played for Manly, and obviously Newcastle won that game, but he did score a try in that game. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Shannon Nevin. Now, Shannon debuted in 1995 during the hype of the Super League War. He joined Manly. He had players around him like Matt Ridge, as well as Jeff Tuvey, Spud Carroll, and the like. So we talk about how playing with those legends, how that good was, and how being coached by Bob Fulton was as well. We also talk about the Grand Final, obviously, as well, moving to the Balmain Tigers as well. And also, we have an interesting discussion about concussions as well, because it is something that is very close to his heart as well, as you'll find out in the interview. And we talk about concussions and if the NRL is doing enough in that space as well. And we also talk about two things that he is very, very passionate about. One is his business. He is the owner and operator of a gym and fitness centre in Seaforth on the northern beaches of Sydney called That Fitness Place. But also his other passion is something that is really important to him and a lot to others as well. It is his charity called Walk and Talk for Life. Now, that is very interesting, that chat as well. I will put the details of that charity in the show notes, and also so you can make a donation if you can, or potentially get involved as well. So it is a great idea. It is a great concept. So congratulations, Shannon, doing great stuff in that space as well. I know something that very passionate about, so that is a very interesting part of the conversation that we have together. Now, this was done a couple of weeks ago, so it was a very interesting chat, and a player that I watched rugby league when I was growing up, and watched him play the game, so it was always great to connect with those sort of players. And so I really appreciate, Shannon, for your time, and hopefully we can catch up one day and say good day. But all this wouldn't have been all possible without the sponsors of the podcast. As you heard them at the top of the show, Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Teamwear, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Para Cave podcast. But enough of me talking. You don't want to hear me. You want to hear the chat with Shannon. So, as Hindy says,
get a beer, coffee, whatever you want.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy, and let's get straight into it. And today on the podcast, the Para Cave podcast, I've got a special guest who's joining me. Now, he played for Balmain and the Manly Sea Eagles, started off his career at the Sea Eagles, played in the famous 1997 Grand Final, which I'm sure he would talk about, but probably not like it. But it also, these days as well, has a charity called Walk and Talk for Life, so we'll talk about that one for sure. Definitely. Welcome to the Para Cave podcast, Mr. Shannon Nevin.
G'day, Troy. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I must admit I've never seen so much blue and gold in a screen. But I appreciate you're a mad Para fan. With a great history. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for joining me. Now, born in Sydney and being a Manly Sea Eagles junior, was that the team that you followed growing up?
Well, to be honest, I was living in the bush as a 5-year-old for a couple of years, and I actually followed St George.
Okay, yeah.
Just for 2 years out there, because one of the publicans that came to Mum and Dad's pub was a mad St George fan. So I started. He bought me a St George outfit, so I was wearing that. I don't know if I've got a photo anywhere, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. But yeah, we moved back to Manly when I was 7.
Okay.
So I've been on the Northern Beaches since I was 7. So obviously, since I was in primary school in Manly, started following the Sea Eagles then.
Okay, yeah. Who are your favourite Dragons and Manly players growing up to play?
Look, Dragons players. I was probably a bit young to really be even other than wearing their jersey. And
yeah, fair enough.
I really didn't follow the Dragons back then. But look, back in the day, man, my favourite Manly players. Of course, I really started following them. Like, when I think about it, it was really sort of in my early teens that I really started following them. And of course, blokes like Desi and Cliffy, that I used to look up to and obviously eventually had the pleasure of playing with.
Yeah.
Look, Cliff Lyons was always really the one that sort of, blokes like Terry Randall, Graham Eadie as a legend fullback that he was. There was so many, but I just appreciated anyone that was playing that level of rugby league because, to play that level, you got to be doing something right.
Yeah, definitely. And a bit of a shout out to Graham Eadie. He's doing it a little bit tough at the moment. I saw on socials. So our thoughts go out to him and hopefully he can pull through. Now, it was a pretty tough time for yourself to come through the grades at Manly. Obviously, with Matty Ridge there as the fullback. But you did make your debut in round 1 of 1995. What was your debut like? What can you remember from that game?
Oh, look, to be honest, I can remember the speed of the game. Because that was my first year of grade 1995.
Okay.
And back then it was interesting. Like I love sort of comparing eras, and so back then there was first grade, reserve grade, and under 20s.
Yep.
Under 21s. There were 3 grades, and they used to play back to back.
Yep.
And so 95 was my first year of grade. So the year before I was in Jersey Flegg, and then went to grade the next year and was the fullback in reserve grade. And you'd play a game, and what Bob Fulton used to do, who was my coach back then, what he used to do, I used to play all of reserve grade and then sit on the bench as a reserve for first grade. So often, a lot of those times that I came off the bench in my especially in that 1995 year, was after I played reserve grade. So I'd play a whole game of reserve grade, sit on the bench, and then often come on as a reserve, because Bozo would only have 3 fresh reserves. He wouldn't have 4; he'd have 3.
Yep.
And then the 4th one would come from the reserve grade team.
Okay. Yeah.
Give us a bit of experience. But yeah, I can remember the speed, like playing reserve grade, even the toughest reserve grade game, you'd come on and first grade was just so much faster, and so much the hits were harder, and it just all of a sudden you'd be just gassed and out of breath, and just going, oxygen, where have you gone? So that was definitely the thing. The speed of it and the intensity of it was the thing I noticed.
Yeah, and especially coming on after playing a full game of reserve grade, that must have been tough as well. But you did get a taste of finals football that year, and again, that must have been a step up from regular club football.
Yeah, it definitely was. That was against Cronulla. I came on for about 20 minutes, had a couple of touches and kicked a conversion, which was, that was an experience. It was at the footy stadium, and, and I'd only ever played a handful of games that year. And so, I wasn't very experienced, but yeah, I'll never forget running out there because, I was really only a backup for Ridge,
Okay, yeah.
I was never really a full-time first grader then, or ever really in Manly. At Manly, I was always sort of the understudy. So I was there just as a backup, and when whoever went down, I can't even remember, and I got called onto the field. It was like, it was a big thrill because it was a big crowd at the SFS back then, and being such a young, inexperienced player to play a part of a semi was a real big thrill. Yeah, it was good.
Now, just on a side note, in those days, the semi-finals were played at the SFS,
Yep.
the old football stadium, and these days we have like home finals being played. What's your thoughts about that finals and the home finals? Do you think they should be played at, say, two locations, as we've got a core stadium now and the football stadium, or do you stick to
Look,
the home finals?
I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I love the fact of back in the day, it was the footy stadium. It was in the middle of the city. That was where we all played, and as much as these days they have the home semi-finals, I just think, yeah, you've got your advantage from, you might have finished on top but you're playing a weaker team, so your advantage is to play at home. But I just think you've made the effort. All the teams have made the effort to get the semis. I think it should be just in the one or two home grounds, whether it's the FSF or the out at home bush. I just think it's more even field, even keel there.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. Look, the fans, I love watching Manly play at Brookie, and yeah, we should have a home at Brookie for a semi-final. But I much prefer having it just as that's where everyone. And back then that's all we knew. So you made the semis, and you're getting on a bus and going to the SFS. So that was where I'd prefer it to be, I reckon.
Yeah, that's it. Well, 1995, going back to 1995, that was when the Super League war poked its head up, and it was happening in the game of rugby league. How did that impact yourself just starting your career?
Oh, look, it wasn't. I wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't get offered big money for Super League because I was just a young guy coming into grade. I was lucky enough to be captain of the junior Kangaroos that year.
Okay.
And that was part of the sort of the ARL side of things. But that's not the reason why I decided to stay with ARL. I was just in a club that was basically ARL.
Yeah.
With Kevin Arthurson and Bob Fulton there. And so it was an easy thing for me to stick with the majority of what the players were doing. I think a lot of players that might have been on the outer or the big players got offered big money for Super League, and I can see why that would be an option for them because they had the opportunity to make some big dollars, But for me, it wasn't, I didn't get offered big money, so I just sort of stayed at the club and with the ARL just because, that was the right thing to do in my eyes.
Yeah, many of the players that I've spoken to during that time did stick with their teams because they wanted to play with their mates, and that was the team that they were at, whether it be Super League or ARL at the time. So that seems to be a bit of a common theme in terms of that Super League time.
Yeah, right.
Do you think Super League was a good time for the game, or just the players that were involved? Or
no, I don't think so. It was a divide. Like it separated everyone. Like when you've got an amazing game like rugby league is, I think. What's the use of trying to, I think it was sort of like what happened in the cricket. Remember back in the day when the one days came in and they sort of tried to make this sort of different sort of spectacle.
Yep.
But I think when they knew it was going to be divided and you were going to have so many good players over here and so many good players over there, I think that ruined the game. And look, because it didn't last very long and it came back together, I think that was the best part of the rugby league journey was when they all came back together, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of those big players that did sign with Super League was Matthew Ridge, the fullback at Manly for the Warriors. Did you think then you were going to get that fullback position when he left?
Yeah, I guess. I was still only young, and they always sort of, what am I trying to say? They always spoke to me as in, I was his understudy, I want to try and learn from him. And whether it was going to take me 1, 2, 3, 4 years to play first grade as a regular, it didn't bother me.
Okay.
I just loved playing, I wasn't expecting anything. And look, to be honest, when he left and I wasn't like Craig Hancock was playing a lot of fullback, and Hank's a mate of mine, and at the time he was like, Nevo, what are they playing me fullback for? I hate playing,
Yeah.
And I sometimes was on the wing. I sometimes come off the bench on the wing to fill in positions. So yeah, look, I wasn't disappointed that I wasn't the walk up, because I was still so young and inexperienced, So, and I didn't have an ego on me saying, why aren't I sort of, because I wasn't this elite guy that was deserving of just walking into a, first grade spot. It was just, I had to earn my stripes,
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, you played the first 8 games in '96, and then another game in round 21. 1997 rolls around, and that split in the competition, as we said, comes around, and it's the ARL and Super League. And as you mentioned, Craig Hancock got that fullback position. Unfortunately, he broke his ankle in round 17, and then you played.
He'll tell you, and he'll tell you that was my fault.
Yeah, okay. Being the understudy,
I should have caught a bomb. I should have caught a bomb that I left for him, and he ends up getting smashed. And he goes, "You did that on purpose."
I'll have to ask him about that one day if I ever get him on the podcast. He'll probably love that. But as I said, you make the side, and in 1997, obviously it's a Newcastle Manly grand final. But 2 weeks before that, Manly beat Newcastle in the semi-finals. Did you think, as a team, that going into that grand final, because you'd beaten them 2 weeks previous, you were confident that you were going to win that grand final?
We'd beaten them 14 times in a row.
That's a pretty good record.
We dominated them, like it was one of those. My second first grade game in 1995 was, or my second run on first grade game was against Newcastle on the Friday night in front of 32 Novocastrians, where Chief Harrigan and Spud came together. So that was my second first grade game. The week before, just a little story, the week before was my first run-on game. Manly had won 17 games in a row with Ridge at fullback. He gets injured. I come in against the Roosters at Brookie Oval, and we lose. And I feel like, oh, God, it's all my fault.
Yeah.
We won 17 in a row. And then Bozo came up to me and he said, Shan, don't worry, the first games, you've got that out of the way. We need you at fullback next week against Newcastle up at Marathon Stadium. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. And that was that game with Spud and Chief. And I'll never forget just when that collision happened. I can remember just walking behind them, just going, "Shit, what game am I playing here? Like, this is just crazy."
Could you hear the actual thud?
Mate, I could hear it. It was it was a loud collision. Like I'll just and I've seen that, they show that a lot, and I just bring it back. It's like I'm there when I see that.
Okay, yeah.
A vivid memory of mine. But yeah, I forget what the question was. I went off to another tangent.
Did you have the wood over the Newcastle?
Oh yeah, of course. Of course we did. We thought, but not. There was never a sense of cockiness in our team of, going in, feeling like we've got this one easily. I just think, look, it was just one of those things. It was, we didn't take our chances. We didn't score a point. We were ahead at halftime. 16-8. I think I scored a try right at the end of the first half, which put us ahead 16-8. And then, look, we didn't score a point in the second half. And you can't win a game if you don't score a point in the second half, often in a grand final, right? Like and they took their chances. And, look, we all know what happened with the, Andrew Johns going the blind side with Darren Albert. And it was just, one of those master classes of, picking a short side and picking a bit of weakness. We're tired. It was the end of the game. And that's the end of it. So, did I think we were going to win it before it? Yeah, I probably did. I thought this is, if we go play well, we'll probably win. But unfortunately, my fairy tale didn't end the way I'd scripted it in my head.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Just going back to that Newcastle game up there at Newcastle, is it true that Spud really does circled the game on the calendar and was really pumped up during the week of that game, and he's going to get the Chief? Yeah,
look, I don't know if he circles the calendar. I haven't heard that. But, look, he is very passionate and always has been. And look, it was that rivalry. They were two warriors that just used to go at it all the time. They were both such tough men, you know.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, Spud's a character. I can remember he gets so passionate before a game and nervous, he vomits. He's sick in the dressing sheds. Wow. Yeah, back then we had smelling salts that he used to have. And I can remember when I first came to grade at Manly, you know, I looked up to, like, I had guys in the forwards at Manly, like guys like Gillespie, Carroll, Tuvey when he was playing hooker, you know, Menzies, Gartner, Owen Cunningham, all these legends, right? And I'm this young guy who gets to tell him what to do and where to go in the defensive line. I get to move over here and stop dragging your ass, you know, swearing at him, you know. And Spud came up to me beforehand in the dressing sheds and he said, Shannon, if I'm out there dragging my ass on that field, you tell me where to go. And I'm like, okay. So there was a couple of times on the field, I'll never forget it. And I wanted to have a bit of fun with him because he gave me that free rein. There was a couple of times where he might have done 2 hit-ups in a set of 6, 3 sets of 6s in a row, and he'd done 4 tackles. Like, he was just working his butt off. And I was going, stop walking, you blood. And he was gassed because he put in so much effort. And he sort of does what you say. If you get up him, he'll keep on running. And after the game, I had a bit of a laugh with him. I said, oh, did you like how he goes, oh, you're a bit into me, weren't you? I said it wasn't all fair income. I was just having a bit of a go at you, you know. But it was a thrill for me to be able to tell someone like that who I looked up to and who was this big man mountain telling me where to go, you know.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great story. Love it. But even in the grand final, those two, Chief and Harrigan, were at it. There was some massive hits in that grand final.
Oh, yeah. They used to look at it. They used to look for each other. You could see it. They'd, especially Chief, would fly out of the line all the time to get Spud because Spud was, I think, a bit bigger in his, like more direct in his running. Like Harrigan had a little bit better footwork. Spud was sort of just, once he hit that line, and Harrigan, you'd always see sometimes try and come out of the line like they did in that game where they had that collision. Yeah. You know, it was something I think all the fans used to love watching it, you know, that sort of rivalry between two great guys and great players.
As a fullback, who would have been the hardest player to tackle at fullback?
Well, there's 2 players that I found the hardest to tackle. One was Martin Lang.
Yeah.
A couple of times at 5'8" when I was playing against him. It was actually for the Tigers. He'd run it off the kickoff and he ran towards me. He was like a freight train. But the other one was the other 2 probably would have been Gordon Tallis and Wendell Saylor. I can remember trying to tackle Wendell Saylor a couple of times where his legs were just so big and so his stride was so, you know, you'd come across in cover and you'd just think you're putting a hit on his legs and it would just be like you're hitting a bloody tree. It was like, because I was only a little bloke and his legs were massive, but Wendell Saylor was pretty hard to tackle.
Well, you just mentioned Marty Lang off the kickoff there, and just lately there's been a bit of talk about the NRL potentially changing the rules of kickoffs to stop that long kickoff and a potential concussion. We saw Jacob Preston against South Sydney get concussed and break his jaw. We saw just over the weekend, I think Mo Fadawaka and I forget it, Cowboys player go off for HIA for concussion off a kickoff. Late after your career, you talked about concussions and having 15 throughout your career. What are your thoughts about the NRL potentially changing those kickoff rules? And also, do you think the NRL is doing enough about concussions?
Look, it's a real tough topic. I love rugby league. I love everything about it. I hate everything about concussions. You know, my dad died of early onset Alzheimer's dementia.
Okay, sorry to hear that.
I got lots of concussions. Like, I only had a short career, but I got concussed a lot from an early age. I can remember in under-17s SG ball, I was out cold on the field. They stopped the game, and my mum got called out onto the field with an ambulance. And when I was 17, that's when I had a lot of micro concussions. Like, when I say micro concussions, like even in the grand final, the first tackle that I get, when I get tackled off a scrum, when I first watched the game back 10 years later after the game, I couldn't remember a lot of the game when it was all happening.
Yeah.
And it was in that first tackle, you see me get tackled and my just head hits the ground and I get stunned. You know, when you see someone and they just get a bit sort of, I get up really slowly.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not me being out cold, but that's a minor head knock. That's a concussion, you know, that's a brain injury. And I had lots of those little ones.
Okay.
So at Harrigan, I got KO'd pretty bad against Newcastle in one of the games up there when he was diving over for a try, and I was sort of protecting the try line and had a head knock, and I got knocked out bad. But back then, you know, you used to get smelling salts and come back on. Yeah, you know, when you're out really badly. So look, I'm all for trying to protect the players. I think it's really important. But and the hard thing is, you ask players. It's like you asked me when I was playing, and I wasn't one of these, you know, 6'5" front rows that are playing now. They're always going to want to come back on. They're always going to keep playing. They're always going to not want to have weeks off and let their team down. They're always they're warriors. You know, they just rugby league players just want to get out there and you know, do their best for their team, kill the opposition, and play their guts out. So they're always going to want to keep playing. Is it in the best interest of them long term? No, I don't think. You know, do we want to make changes to our great game that's going to, you know, take away from the you know, brutality of it and what makes it so special, because it is so brutal. Look, I think they've done well in regards to, you know, coming off now and not being able to go back on, because I think that's where you get a lot of double damage. You know, you come off and then you go back on and get another hit, and you get more brain swelling. So I think that's good. Off the kickoff, I know the NFL are bringing something in this year to do the same with the same sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how common it is that people get concussed off a kickoff compared to just every other set of six.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I know sometimes they run up and have big impacts, but I don't know if the rate of concussions is a lot higher off that play.
Or general play, yeah.
General play. So, you know, I don't know about that rule. That's a bit of an odd one, but I'm all for the game moving forward and protecting the best interest, because I don't like seeing, you know, and hearing stories of guys going through, you know, early onset, you know, dementia and Alzheimer's and brain conditions and CTE and depression, and, you know, which of course can lead to suicide in the end and ruin guys' lives. And, you know, is it really worth it having a great career for, could be 1 year, could be 5 years, could be 15 years, but then having a family and a wife that you have to leave early because of the issues with the concussions. So yeah, it's a tough one. I'll leave that to the boards that sort of make those decisions and have faith in them that they're thinking of the best interest of the players, not the best interest of the sport. Yeah,
okay. No, good answer there. Well, I mean, we saw in that 97 grand final, Jeff Tuvey get concussed, and if that game was played today, he wouldn't have taken any further part in that game.
No, you know, and that happened all the time in games back then.
Yeah.
You know, guys, like I said, we used to come off and, you know, rest up at half time and have some smelling salts and then go back on. Yeah. There was one game that I went back on and kicked out on the full twice off kickoffs.
Yeah, okay.
With the wind. And after the game, someone came up to me and said, what about your kickoffs today? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Had no idea. They told me I kicked off. And that was the game I only just played.
Yeah.
And in the dressing chairs, I couldn't even remember kicking off twice on the full.
Yeah, wow.
So you can tell that there's some sort of brain damage going on there.
You mentioned scoring a try right before half-time. I mean, obviously losing the game is disappointment, but is that it's a special moment, scoring a try in a grand final?
Look, special moment. Look, the three little highlights at Manly was 95. I sat on the bench against Canterbury.
Okay.
Didn't get on, but got to experience the grand final week and the training, and, you know, so, and that was my first year of first grade. 96 is a quick funny story. I didn't finish the year in first grade, so I played the first half of the year first grade. I think I might have had a game late, but then I wasn't part of the first grade squad at 96 at the end of the year, that was a bit upsetting because I played the first half of the season. So I was at a mate's house watching the Sydney Swans play the grand final on the Saturday night.
Okay.
So our reserve grade didn't make the semi. So I'd been sort of out partying with all my mates for like a month during the semi-finals. So I was at my mate's house watching the AFL grand final, and his mum answers the phone. She says, "Shannon, it's Frank Stanton." And I said, "What?" And she said, "It's Frank Stanton on the phone." I'm thinking this is a G up.
Okay,
I pick up the phone. "Hello, Shannon, it's Frank." "Oh, piss off. Who is it?"
Yeah.
"Shannon, it's Frank Stanton." And then I recognised his voice.
Okay, yeah.
And he said, Jack Ellsgood's got the flu. We need you to come to Brookie Oval at 11:20 for the meeting, and the bus leaves at, "Oh, okay, Frank."
Yeah.
I said,
drinking and
"You better give me a water."
Yeah.
So I went home and sort of sobered up, and then went to the game the game at the Brookie Oval, and then got the bus in. So I sat on the bench in '96, and the great thing was I felt like I was a big part of the team because I played a lot of the first half of the year.
Okay, yeah.
And so we won that game against the Dragons, and I got to do the lap of honour, and obviously the fans knew me, and I'm high fiving, and so I'm in the team photo that you see with the shield, and I'm the guy with the clean jersey up the top, just top of just at the back of the team,
And then more celebrations after that.
Yeah, and we went back. That was a great night. Like I'll never. So I felt like I didn't play that game, but I felt like I experienced the thrill of winning it. And it's funny, the grand final jersey I got that year doesn't even have a win. Like was it Optus? I think it was still Optus in '96. It doesn't have a grand final badge on it because I got caught up the night before.
Yeah, right. They didn't have one ready.
No, they don't know. I just had like an old Pepsi, like that looks the same but just doesn't have the grand final thing.
Yeah.
So that was a great highlight. Doing the lap of honour with the boys, and then obviously '97 to play it and lose it. Yeah, look, that was shattering. But I guess I can look back now and say, look, I played a grand final. I did score a try in one. And yeah, what a thrill to sing. I'll never forget singing the national anthem. That was because I was always a proud Aussie, and singing the national anthem when you watch the Olympics or when you watch sporting events was always something that I just really looked up to and appreciating guys doing, and men and women doing. So I'll never forget standing up and singing the national anthem loud and proud that day. That was a huge thrill.
Yeah, I can see it now, how much it meant to you playing in that game and talking about it now.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, making a grand final is a massive achievement. Some say it isn't if you don't win, but still, making a grand final is a massive achievement. And over those 3 years, Manly were the dominant team in the competition, and they only won one. But
1 from 3, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned you played with some great legends there, Steve Menzies, Cliff Lyons and Jeff Tuvey, just to name a couple there, Mark Carroll. What was it like playing with them, being with them in and out every week on and off the field?
Yeah, look, I was just, seriously, like to be a young footy player playing in a team with so many legends. Like you look at that team, like guys like Danny Moore, Craig Hancock, Terry Hill, Hopper Whitey, Craig Innes.
Yeah.
And then the forwards like Spud and Cement and OJ, Owen Cunningham and Gartner, Menzies, Jimmy Sedaris. Just so many legends that I just were going. I'd be at training with them just to be around these guys and have the opportunity to learn from them. And look, I was always a lot younger than all those guys. So to be honest, they weren't the type of mates of my, say, the sort of schoolmates that I'd hang out with and do stuff with on the weekends, or, I'd play footy with them, train with them, but they weren't really close mates because back then it wasn't, when I was at Manly, it wasn't fully professional.
Yeah. A
lot of the guys still worked, and I was studying at uni, so it's not like we spent all day every day. We just had training sessions with each other.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a little bit different, but yeah, it was a huge thrill, just admiring and looking up to these legends in my eyes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the late great Bob Fulton was your coach at Manly.
Yep.
What was he like for a coach for yourself?
Well, he was like, it was an interesting. I was best friends with his youngest son, Brett.
Okay.
So it's a great. When I look back on my life as a footy player and as a young player. I've got a story about Bob Fulton. I played for Christian Brothers, one of the local clubs in Manly as a kid. I played upper grade my whole life with Brett Fulton and blokes like Anthony Kallela, who played first grade, Adam Nabel, who was a hooker for the Tigers and then went overseas and played in England. We had a couple of first graders in that team, and I'll never forget. I think it was under 11s, under 11 grand final. We were playing Narrabeen. And we'd won. We were the gun team. I think we won 7 or 8 grand finals in a row with this team.
Yeah, wow.
And at half time, it was 17-0 against us, Narrabeen Sharks.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. Bob Fulton walked onto the ground, and Dave Nabel, who is a lot of the listeners would know Matt Nabel.
Yep, for sure.
And the youngest brother Aaron just passed away from motor neurons. Who was the Nabels have been because Adam Nabel is one of my best mates as well. So the Nabel family is very close to my heart, and Dave Nabel was our coach, who was he was also the strength and conditioning and fitness coach for the Seagulls for 10 years.
Okay, yep.
So during my junior career as a Christian Brothers footy player, we were in this grand final. Dave Nabel was the coach. We were down 7-0 at half time, and back then all the parents used to come around the team. Yeah. Bozo walked over and he said, parents, can you just move aside for a minute? So all the parents moved back, and Bozo stood in the middle of us, and he said, "Guys, kids, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? You guys are so much better than this team. You guys have been look over at those parents. You wanted to do them proud." And I forget the exacts, but we basically just made us all just go, "Yeah, you're right. Yeah, what are we doing?" And we went back out. It was 17 all at full time. And then at the first extra time, it was 22 all because it was 5-point tries back then. Okay. 22 all after the first extra time, and then in the second extra time, I scored the winning try to win, and as 11-year-old. So I'll never forget that experience of what we, in the under 11s winning, because I was always the fast kid back then. Okay. I was just the fast. I just the fast kid the ball.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget that because he came onto the field and gave us that little speech to get us back from 17-0.
Was he coaching first grade at the time?
Yeah, he was coaching first grade at the time. Yeah.
To get a halftime speech like that from a first grade coach and
correct. Yeah. And I can't remember if he was sort of in and out, because he had bouts at Manly. I think that was that would have been 87, and that's
they won
that
the
was 87. Correct. So we've got the best coach in the country giving us a sort of a halftime spiel. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did you sign with the Tigers before the 98 season? No. I that was a big issue for me. And look, it was even now. It's hard for me to work it all out. I was a local junior. I was on $40,000 for the 3 years I was at Manly. I was on $40,000. Yeah. And as a young 18, 19-year-old player, that was, but it was still not really huge dollars compared to everyone else. I would have stayed at Manly for nothing. Okay. They always blooded me to be Matthew Ridge's replacement. And it was very upsetting for me because after the 97 grand final, that last sort of 7 or 8 games was probably the best footy I played for Manly over that last part of the season and the semis and the grand final. So I was expecting them to re-sign me, and they'd already signed Luke Phillips. Okay.
And I was shattered, and they made out. And the annoying thing was, and it's a hard pill for me to take because I love everything about Manly. I knew Bob Fulton very well. I was a local junior. I always didn't do anything bad for the club at all. And then I was just one of those players that they just, for whatever reason, didn't want. They never told me why. Okay. So they didn't offer me a contract. They made out that I was asking for too much money in the media. So I actually went on the footy show when the Tigers signed me because it got to the stage where my manager said, "We've got to look. There are other clubs after you."
Yep.
And Manly was saying, "Oh, we're trying to get rid of a few players to free up some money." And my manager said, "Look, if they wanted you, they would have signed you. They wouldn't have signed Luke Phillips already." So when I signed with the Tigers, I went on the footy show and I wanted to clear it up because they were making out that I was asking for too much money, and I was upset because I'm not that type of person. I didn't want fans to think poorly of me, because I was very, like, when I say liked by the fans, I always gave a lot to fans because it was what I was, it was the right thing to do because the fans make this game.
Yeah.
And then, so on the footy show, I actually said, look, I just want to let everybody know Manly didn't offer me anything. I would have stayed for nothing, but they didn't offer me anything. So I just want to clear that up because I love Manly. And look, in hindsight, it was me going to the Tigers. It was an opportunity, but my heart wasn't in it.
Okay.
I didn't really want to leave. And the 2 years that I had at the Tigers weren't good. I didn't play very well. It sort of upsets me to think that my career went down that path. And look, I loved the club of the Tigers, and I loved the players there. It was a great experience, and but I really didn't play well at all. So in hindsight, that sort of I retired a year later after that, and then my career sort of ended. So yeah, look, things just pan out the way that they do. I had an opportunity to go to England. But my wife was pregnant with our first child, and I wanted to. It was really important for me to have a family around my family.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't want to go to England and play as much as it was still playing footy.
Yeah.
I said to my wife, so after the 2 years at Balmain, I wasn't part of the West Tigers because I didn't play very well. So I went back to the Northern Eagles for a year, and they wanted to give me a chance playing wing, and for the Northern Eagles. And in the preseason, I had a bad operation on my ankle and was out for 8 weeks, the first 8 weeks of the comp.
Yeah.
Came back in reserve grade, and I said to my wife at the time, I said, look, if I don't make first grade, I'm just going to do something else I think because I'd played a grand final, I'd at least in my head, I'd done something. I'd achieved something. So it was easy for me as much as I loved rugby league. It was more important to try and establish something for my family and establish a career that's going to be more long term than rugby league. So that's when I decided to pull the pin in 2000 when I was 24. And look, it was a hard decision because I watched rugby league for years after that, and I was watching guys my age play.
Okay, yeah.
Guys that I played with and guys that I was quite capable of playing with and alongside. And I'd often think, I could still be out there, but I don't regret anything. My late father, John Nevin, told me, he said, Shannon, don't ever regret anything in life because you won't sleep at night.
Okay, yeah, good.
So I never regretted retiring early. I just thought, well, I've made my new challenges now, and this is the path, the journey that my life's given me. So make the most of that, and so be it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice there, and. Unfortunately, today we saw the sad news of Keith Barnes' passing.
I heard that.
Legend at Balmain, the Balmain Tigers. So condolences to his family and friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever have any meetings with Keith?
Yeah, I had meetings with Keith when I first signed.
Yep.
And he gave me the sort of rundown of the club, and he was, because he was an older guy and a legend, and he gave me the rundown of the history of the club and what the Tigers was all about, and it was very nostalgic. He was, he was the heart and soul of the Tigers. So it was very sad to hear of his passing.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. Who would have been the pest or jokers at the Sea Eagles and Tigers when you played? And what did they get up to?
Terry Hill. His list. He was a blabbermouth. He was funny. Guys used to laugh at him more than with him because he was always just trying to take the mickey out of everything,
Okay.
And he was a bit of a serial pest, I must admit. At the Tigers, blokes like Shane Walker and Darren Centre. Because they'd be hogging the mirror when I'm trying to do my hair. They'd always be in front of they're two guys, the two of the only guys that I've ever known to do their hair before they run out for a game of football.
Okay, yeah, wow. Wow.
Great
Well, it would have
guys,
been every game televised back then, wouldn't it? Or
yeah,
a
that
lot of
was.
games, yeah.
It was very important to look good as you ran out.
Well, Darren, he would have been the captain. Oh no, Ciro was
Yes.
there too, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, Darren Senna was Ciro was my first year,
Yeah.
and then the second year was Darren Senna.
Oh well, he's running out. Darren's running out first.
Correct, he's
So
running out.
he's obviously going to get the camera on him. So
Yeah. No, he's a good fella, Darren. Really good fella.
yeah, no, that's it. That's it. Well, you talked about life after football there, and you've got your local independent gym, fitness centre.
Yep.
That fitness. And,
Yeah, that fitness place.
That fitness place at Seaforth.
Yep. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Give that a plug.
Yeah, look, I've had a gym so I retired in 2000 and set up a gym that year in September in 2000. It was called Personal Results. It was a personal training studio. So I was like the first boutique style fitness center in Sydney that had you could basically walk in off the street and have a personal trainer. Okay. So I was, only in about 35 square meters. It was just like a little shop front where you could walk in and I just train little groups in that space. So it was really unique back then in the day. So people used to come to me. People used to travel a long way because it was so unique. You didn't have to.
Wow.
Back then, most personal trainers, or you had to join a big gym and get a personal trainer in that gym. There were no little studios back then. So, I've been doing that. I had that Personal Results in 2 different premises for about 16 years. And then I set up that fitness place in another premises in Seaforth, and I've been doing that since 2015. So that's an access anytime facility where I run group sessions as well as do one-on-one training in that. And look, I love my job as a personal trainer. I just go, when I hear people talk about their jobs and that, I love my job. I've been an accountant or I'm a mechanic and I love it. I'm like, I think of my job and all I do every day is just listen to music, chat to people and just tell them what to do while they're training. And just, enjoy whatever the day brings, like it's like another way that I explain it, it's like I'm a radio disc jockey, but my callers are all in the gym talking to me.
Okay, yeah.
So I just tell them what to do, having a laugh, talking about the day's news, just the local gossip, and just getting paid for it. It's being a personal trainer and having your own facility is just such a great job, and I just love it. I love inspiring people to become the best they can through physical training and good nutrition, and just taking care of themselves, and to have it's been 24 years this year that I've had a gym, and I just think, shit, where's that time gone?
Wow, 24 years.
24 years. But I do love it. I love the people. I love and again, I got taught. My dad taught me a lot of things in life, and one of the things was he said, Shannon, don't think you can't learn from everyone, because every single person you meet in this world, you can learn something from. Don't think you're the smartest, that you're the best at anything. There's always people that, and I take that on board, and that's why I think I'm such a people person, because I just love talking to people, because I could bump into someone in the street and learn something from them if I really focus and take some time just to give them some attention and be present in their conversation.
Yeah.
And I do that in the gym. I just meet people all the time and train them and get to know them and just pull something from them. And in turn, I hope they pull something from me, and I can give them something back that hopefully they're going to take away and use in their life in the future through, my expertise as a trainer and a fitness professional.
Yeah, well, and you've sort of become the coach now. You were the player, you've become the coach, and you get to see people's results and, as you said, inspire them to get those results. Is there any competition between yourself and Spud with his gym, or did you inspire him to start one up? Or
he always loved motivating people, because he was a hard trainer, Spud. He was a hard trainer. He used to flog himself on. We used to have an arm ergometer that you sort of Desi Hasler got me onto that too when he was there. A quick story about Des Hasler in 1995. was my first year. It was his last year at Manly, and I used to go to the ground early to kick goals, to the goal kicking practice. And I'd get off the bus from school, or sometimes drive, and then I'd walk through the dressing sheds early. And Des Hazard would always be in there training on this arm ergometer, or doing chin ups, push ups, dips. And I'd walk past him, and he'd go, Shannon, come on, we'll do some training. Okay, Des. I'd train with him for like 40 minutes before training. I was absolutely screwed. The guy was so fit. Come training time, I had nothing left. Like, I wasn't as fit as Des Hasler.
Yeah.
So eventually I'd see his car there, and instead of walking through the weights room to then put boots on, I'd go straight onto the field and avoid seeing him because he was just so fit. And I thought, I don't want to train with him. I'm going to spew before training again.
He'll probably just grab the next person that walked past.
Yeah, I know. He's like, but yeah, he was one fit guy, Des Hasler.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, big MG, he's got his gym as well, MG Active.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and look, I think it's for a lot of people that obviously have been fit themselves, whether it's through, for us through sport, but a lot of athletes, do go into training because they like inspiring people, and they know a lot about motivating and pushing hard. It's all about pushing limits. And, if you can be inspired by somebody who's been there before when it comes to setting goals, challenging yourself and pushing yourself to levels that you need to push to succeed, I think it's a good formula for success when it comes to being a trainer. Not to say that you can't be a good personal trainer and not being a professional athlete, but there's something about experience when you've been able to push yourself at that elite level that I think you're then it's a good step up to then motivate other people to push themselves, not necessarily at the elite level only, but just at any level to get the best out of their bodies.
That's for sure. Well, your other passion in life as well is your charity, the Walk and Talk for Life. Tell us a little bit about that and what's involved. And
Walk and Talk for Life. Yeah, look, I in 2016, I've always done a lot of community work. I've loved doing, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and mum and dad always, did work at the church and did a lot of charity work at the Wayside Chapel in King's Cross and stuff with St Vincent de Paul, and as a young father, I always liked sort of teaching my kids to do, give back to community. And in 2016, the rates of suicide were going up, as it's well aware now and quite commonly known. So I wanted to do something locally. So I thought to myself, back then, I thought, I'm good at walking and talking. It sounds good. It's exercise and chatting. I Googled it. There was nothing around called Walk and Talk back then. So then I thought, I'm going to set up this group in Manly where I feel like I want to give everyone a shirt so they feel like they're a part of the same team.
Yep.
Because as the whole football type thing.
Okay.
We're going to go for a walk, put on a barbecue, and I'm just going to connect people because I know the benefits in my work with people that are depressed and anxious in my gym. I know the benefits of actually taking the time to be present in somebody's life and ask just simple questions about them and actually makes them feel very safe and secure and feel comfort in that connection.
Yeah.
So that's how I came up with it. Set up in Manly, and we got 200 people that came to the first walk. We walked to Shelley Beach and back. We put on a barbecue, gave everyone a shirt, and everyone just said, "This is awesome,"
Yeah.
I never thought that it would go beyond that. I then got asked to set them up in different areas. One of the main ones was Lithgow, where they had had 5 suicides from this rugby club this one year.
Yeah, wow.
And someone approached me and said, Shannon, can you set up Walk and Talk in Lithgow? So I set it up in Lithgow. We had 500 people turn up for the first walk.
That's amazing.
It was incredible. And I'll never forget walking around with a woman, and we walked past a tree, and she broke down crying as we were going past, and I put my arm around her. I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, this is a very emotional time for me. My daughter was found hanging from that tree."
Okay, yeah, wow.
And wow, I was just like, I get teary thinking about that experience on that day, and experiences like that just motivated me to keep on doing this event and setting this event up. So I kept on going. I eventually got a bit of backing from a big charity in Queensland, and I eventually had about 30 different locations set up before COVID. So we had them in, a lot in rural towns like Bathurst and Orange, Tamworth, Dubbo, Blue Mountains. We had some in Queensland, some in the ACT. And it's just a simple walk put on by volunteers.
Yep.
Just connect people. And then COVID hit and a lot of these walks stopped because of couldn't go out in groups and everything.
Yep.
And long term, it was always an idea to become a charity, because then you've got extra opportunity with funding and being able to get grants, and people can claim their donations if they donate to you.
Yep.
So we were lucky enough to get so Walk and Talk for Life is now a charity as of last year, which is great. So for any listener that wants to donate to us, because we basically need funds to be able to set up events, pay for things like shirts and barbecues, and help the volunteers run these events. So you can go onto our website, which is at www.walkntalkforlife, FOR, so it's for the word for, so walkntalkforlife.org.au, and you can make donations there, and that money just goes to helping us set up more events all around the country and reducing suicide. And I know Walk and Talk for Life works, because I've had, since 2016, I've had any number, and when I say any number, it could be anywhere from between 30 and 50 phone calls and messages that have said that if it wasn't for your event, I think my son or daughter would be dead.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
And we know that for a fact, because they were in such a dark place. And I've had messages of people messaging me saying, Shannon, I just want to thank you for your words. And like, I also do I've got a Facebook group called Shannon Nevin Wellbeing.
Okay. Yep.
It's another group where I speak to people regularly, do like daily or every couple of days, I do like live feeds, just doing inspirational sort of messages about life, about living, about relationships, about just using lots of things that I've learned in my life to try and help inspire people to become better versions of themselves. And I've got messages from all around the country of people who I've never met that have just said, Shannon, I just want to thank you for your little live videos, and because if it wasn't for those, I don't think I would be here right now. And it just makes me just realize how simple what I've done is, and what impact that can have on people's lives. But I tell everyone that I know, we all can have that same impact by just being present and taking an interest in people.
Yep.
And asking some nice questions and just being present in other people's lives, rather than we all get lost in today's fast-paced world where we don't have time for anything. We don't have time for anyone. We don't have time for ourselves. But what Walk and Talk is that if we just slow down a little bit and be present in other people's lives, I think there's a great opportunity that we're going to save lots of lives. And the suicide rates are going up. I don't even care about what the figures are, because all I know is one person that takes their life is one too many. So if Walk and Talk for Life can do just their little bit in creating spaces for people to go in different areas around the country where they can go and meet some nice people, have a walk, have a free barbecue, get a shirt, feel connected, I think the world's going to be in a better place.
Yeah, no, well, that's amazing. You're doing amazing stuff there in that space. And Shannon Nevin Wellbeing on Facebook, anybody can join. And that's amazing. I know former guest on the podcast, Gus Warland, as well, with Gotcha for Life. He's doing some great stuff there, and one of his biggest things is reaching out to people just by simply ringing them or a text message of that person that you haven't spoken to or connected with in a long time. So
yeah, Gus came to my first walk. He's a great guy. Great guy, Gus.
He is. But you yourself are doing some great stuff as well. We'll do the quick top 10, where it's a simple sort of yes or no or a option there, and we'll start off. And some of these things you might not be able to answer because you're such a fitness and healthy sort of a guy. So maybe.
No, I can. It's all a show. I'm not that goody.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll start off with barbecue or tomato sauce.
Oh, barbecue.
Yeah, and just a side question to that one: cupboard or fridge storage?
Fridge.
Okay. Yep. On a plane, do you prefer the window seat or the aisle seat?
I prefer the aisle seat so I can stretch my legs out.
Okay, nice answer. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Okay, yep. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Arnold or Sylvester?
Ooh,
It's a tough one.
it's a tough one. Oh, I've got to go Arnold just because. Yeah, no, like movie-wise, I like them both, but no, Arnold, I love him just because of his bodybuilding career, and he was such a character as a bodybuilder.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. This one may be a hard one, and it might have even been a cheat meal during your career. McDonald's or KFC?
Oh, I must say, the older I've got, the more it's KFC.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I'd like to be honest. I'll be honest here. I just drove up to Mullumbimby with my sister, who just bought a house up at Mullumbimby, and we were in that rainstorm on Friday. It took 12 hours.
Yeah, wow.
It normally takes 9.5. We were transporting a whole heap of fish and coral from her tanks and setting up a new tank for her. And we went to we stopped at Macca's and KFC in those 12 hours.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I'm a bad boy, I know, but I'll just train harder at the gym this week.
That's right. That's right. Did you have a cheat meal during your career? Like training so hard or post match?
I love kebabs. I love kebabs. I love kebabs. I'm a big fan of kebabs. Even if it's just shopping down at a Westfields, or and I need some lunch, or I do love a good kebab.
Yeah, nice. Morning or night person?
Well, being a personal trainer, I get up at 4:30.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm a morning person, definitely.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. Summer or winter?
Definitely summer.
Now, I think I know what you're going to answer with this one, having played for Manly and being sponsored by one of these companies, but I could be wrong. Coke or Pepsi?
No, definitely Coke. I hate Pepsi.
Okay.
We used to get free cases of Pepsi, but no, I love Coke. I love Coke.
It was quite funny. I think it might have been when you were playing, actually, that Manly won the Coke Sevens.
Pepsi Sevens, yeah. That was in my first year. I didn't play in that, but yeah, we did win it.
It was sponsored by Coke, but Manly won it sponsored by Pepsi.
Correct.
It's quite funny.
That's right.
Now, being a personal trainer and a coach as well, cardio or weights?
Weights. Is so for all the listeners out there. Weights gives you way more benefits if you were to choose one or the other and only do one. Like a combination's best. If you want an exercise program, it's best to do some cardio and some strength. But if you've only got 3 hours a week to only do 3 sessions, you're going to get more benefit from just doing a strength-based program than you would just doing a cardio-based program.
Okay, nice advice there. And we'll wrap things up with a set of 6. Favourite sport outside of rugby league?
Horse racing.
Okay. How good do you go on the... Are you a gambler?
Yeah, well, I keep on telling myself no, but no, I am. My mum and dad bred racehorses out in the bush, so when I was 5, we went and bought a stud farm and a pub out at a place called Molong out near Orange.
Yeah.
So from an early age, I was on a stud farm breeding racehorses. So from then, it's just stuck with me. My oldest brother Jay is a mad horse expert and just loves the horses. He's got such a good knowledge of horse racing, so we connect on a regular basis weekly about horse racing.
Ah, nice. And you don't go any good on the punt on the gamble?
Well, yeah, I've got to say,
or you gamble responsibly.
I must admit, I took my family away on a holiday to Fiji, all from a big win last year. So, yeah. But I'm not a huge one. I don't bet more than I can afford to lose.
Wise advice there. Well, you mentioned Fiji there. Is that a favourite holiday destination, or is there another one?
Yeah, it was. I've been to Fiji. That's probably the place I've been to the most amount of times. But I've married a beautiful Peruvian woman. And so my dream holiday now is to go to Peru and meet all of her family and see where she was born. And so yeah, Peru's my place I want to go next.
Ah, nice. When I was growing up as a young tacker, the fish and chip owners across the road from us, they were Peruvian.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
right.
Great fish and chips. Who would be the most famous person you would love to meet or would have loved to have met?
I've got a mental blank. What's the guy? The billionaire, the plane guy with the beard.
Richard Branson?
Richard Branson. I bumped into him in Switzerland.
Okay.
On a cable car at Verbier, the ski resort Verbier. I was when was it? It would have been about 5 years ago. I was over there with my best mate Bo, and we were doing this amazing ski holiday. And I got on this big sort of, it was a huge, big, not a chairlift. It was like a gondola. It had like 100 people in it.
Yeah.
And I get in there, and I'm holding my skis. And I look beside me, and it was Richard Branson. And I said to him, "Pity about the ashes, hey Rich, because we just beaten them in the ashes." And he said, "F off, you bloody Aussie," with a smile on his face.
What an encounter.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I had to say, take a second look and go, "Is that him?" It was him.
But good banter there from Sir Richard Branson these days.
Yes, yeah.
Which 3 former teammates do you think you wouldn't want to be on a deserted island with, and why?
Oh, Terry Hill.
Yep.
Terry Hill wouldn't shut up. Who else wouldn't I want to beat? That's a tough one. Shane Dunley, because he'd just be trying to find a gym on the island, even if there wasn't one there. So I wouldn't get to see much because he'd be always trying to get to the gym. Who else? Probably Darren Senna, because he'd be so depressed that he wouldn't be able to do his hair.
Funny, nice. What's your specialty dish in the kitchen or on the barbecue?
Oh, my specialty dish. I do all the cooking in my family, which I've always loved doing all the cooking, because my wife's she's got a big corporate job and she's home late a lot of the time. So, I like doing. I do a really good pasta dish. It's basically just a tomato-based pasta dish with olives and rocket and onion. Okay. That's really nice. But yeah, you can't beat a steak on the barbie. No. Like a good cut of, and look, I love a good sirloin, a good rump steak, a good Scotch fillet. I don't really care if it's come from a cow and you chuck it on a barbie. I will eat it.
Nice. And how does that steak have to be cooked?
Medium rare.
Okay, nice. And last one, who's your favourite musician or band to listen to? I mean, you have listened to heaps of music at your workplace, so.
Yeah, look, I do. Look, I like Birds of Tokyo.
Oh yeah.
I've met them a few times. My sister works for a management company, so her company manages a lot of. So I've met them a couple of times, just because they look after them. So I like their music. I do love Elvis. Yeah. I do love Elvis.
He gets a mention all the time.
Yeah, and I do. I must admit, I do listen to Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi's. I've loved Bon Jovi my whole life. I went and saw them when they were last out here with my 3 boys, and it was the best concert. We were 3 rows from the front.
Yeah, nice.
I've never been so close in a concert before. It was just like it was insane. Yeah, Bon Jovi would have to be up there with one of the greats.
What's your favourite Bon Jovi song?
Oh God, there's so many. Yeah. There's so many. Slippery When Wet, the album Slippery When Wet. Yeah, there are so many. It's a classic album, you know. I can't pick one, but that's definitely the album, I reckon.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, just an extra tackle there, an extra question. What would be the favourite pump up song, like in the gym, like to get you going?
Oh, definitely Rocky IV soundtrack.
Okay, yeah.
I love Rocky. Rocky 4's up there with my favourite movie. That where Rocky's training and he's out in the wilderness in Russia, and Ivan Drago's in the laboratory and in sort of indoors. And they're comparing their movements, but Rocky's running through snow hills, while Ivan Drago's on a stepping machine, and I just love those scenes, and the soundtrack to Rocky IV is great. So I must admit, I do often crank up Rocky IV when I'm pumping heavy weights in the gym.
Nice. Well, Shannon Nevin, thank you very much for joining me today on the Parrot Cave podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed the chat. It's brought back some great memories for myself and no doubt yourself as well. So I really appreciate your time and your chat. So thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Troy. It's been a pleasure. And look, I wish you guys, Para, all you fans out there, I wish you the best for the year. It's going to be a tough year. You're missing your Mitchell Moses at the moment, and it's hard when you lose such a top line player like that. But hopefully you guys will sort of bounce back and sort of get some form back in there and make the semis at the end of the year. But you'll have to beat Manly because we're going to win the comp.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Troy. I really appreciate it. Good chat.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening to Mr. Shannon Nevin and his rugby league and life story. I really enjoyed it, and as I said, a player who I watched play rugby league growing up, watching the sport, falling in love with rugby league, and as I said, played in one of the most memorable grand finals ever, the Manly versus Newcastle grand final of 1997. He scored a try in that game, so a little bit of a consolation there, obviously being unfortunately on the losing side, but nevertheless still playing in a grand final, something that I've never done and never will do. But more importantly, the Walk and Talk for Life charity that he has. Look, I'll put the website details in the show notes, so if you missed it during the chat, go to the show notes and the website details will be there. And if you would like to donate to the charity or find out more about that charity, then that will be there. Also, if you are on the Northern Beaches area and you want to join a gym, I'll put those details there as well, where you can go back and check those details in the show notes and potentially join Shannon in his gym, because as he said during the conversation, that's what he loves doing, working with people. So thank you very much once again, Shannon, for joining me on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. Now, thank you also to the 800 followers I have on Instagram. I really appreciate that. A little bit of a milestone that I reached the other day. So wherever in the world that you are following me, thank you very much. But I also want to say thank you to all the listeners that I get from around the world as well. I have got many listeners from Australia, obviously, being an Australian-based podcast, but I also get some from the USA, so I thank you to the USA listeners, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom as well. And I know that I've got one legend of a listener in Austria as well. He will know who he is. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. But if you know of somebody who you think would enjoy listening to a rugby league based podcast, please steer them in the direction of the Para Cave podcast. Give me a follow on Apple or Spotify, also on the social media channels as well, Instagram, Facebook, and X, which is the old Twitter name, so it is now called X, so give me a follow on that. I'm also on YouTube as well, so each and every podcast goes onto YouTube as well, and there is also a few little videos that I've done from the past there as well, so please steer them that way, give it a follow. I would really appreciate it, and if you could give it a 5-star rating and review, that would even be more of a bonus, so thank you very much for that. If you can do that, I really appreciate it. Para Cave Podcast hats, they are still available, $10 each. Just send me a message on any of the social media channels and we will try and sort that out and get those out to quickly as possible to you. $10, what a bargain. Great looking hat. You see me wearing them all the time. So order yours today. Look, a great little quick birthday gift or just a gift to give to somebody. As I said, great looking hat, $10. What a bargain. Grab one today and that will help support the Para Cave podcast indeed. So I really hope you are enjoying all the content that is coming out on the social media and also the podcast each and every week. The replay chats I have with the Duckman on 89.9 FM, Pulse FM, the tipping podcasts that come out each week, these interview-based podcasts that come out, and any other little podcast that comes out about news and views of Parramatta or generally rugby league as well, sometimes as well. So I really hope you like that. If there's ever anyone you would like me to try and get on for an interview on the podcast who you would like to hear from, just please let me know. Send me a message and I'll see if I can get them on for a chat. Trying to work on a couple of big name guests coming up hopefully in the future, so hopefully I can get those ones across the line, as they will be very interesting indeed. But that's enough of me for this podcast. Please stay tuned for the next podcast that comes out. I really appreciate you listening, and I really appreciate the support. And look, I always end this podcast by saying the Para Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Para Cave Podcast. See you next time.